Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Superman and Lois, and we got some filming updates and some speculation from reliable sources around it. So we are closing in on the 4-month mark of the writer's strike, and we are over a month into the actor's strike. For some larger picture stuff, the writer's strike started before the Flash TV series finale. I think it was like a week or two before the Flash ended that the strike started, so yeah, that felt like that was a while ago. So that's a decent way to see how long this has been going on for, and people are wondering how much longer it will go on for. However, I think most people are tired of hearing about it, which is on the studio's end, not for not sorting it out, so I guess we have them to blame. But over the past couple of days, and this news came out after I had planned my notes and stuff for this video, but some shows have had their renewals reversed, officially. This was a fear that was going to happen, but it's actually happened. So the shows were renewed for new seasons. I think in both of the main cases, or the two main cases, it was a second season, and yeah, they were reversed. So those shows are no more now due to the strikes. They were both Prime Video, I think, or Amazon shows, A League of Their Own and The Peripheral. They were the two shows that were scrapped. I haven't watched either of them, so I can't give any insight as to whether they're good or not, but those were the two shows. But there is a worry these two shows being scrapped could be the start of an avalanche if things don't pick up in regards to the negotiations. And we had talked about this a week or so ago, most recently, and we just talked about in the past when referencing the strike, in regards to the worries for Superman and Lois, though the Next Star CEO did say they would, just continue to delay shows like Superman and Lois and some of the other CW shows further and further into 2024. So based off that, we shouldn't be too worried, at least for now. But let's not talk too much about negative stuff for too much longer. Let's talk about the potential positive future and series of events that could play out, as Deadline did release an outline for how things could play out if or when negotiations are settled, specifically for the Writers Guild or the WGA. And this relates to a lot of shows, mainly network shows like Superman and Lois and shows on the CW, and other network places like CBS, NBC, ABC, etc. But streaming shows still like to go along with this timeline, with this piece from Deadline actually coming out only a few days before the news that those two Amazon shows we mentioned previously had been scrapped, and this piece actually warned of things like that happening. But anyway, Deadline says that Labor Day, that being on Monday, September 4th of this year, usually signals the end of summer and the kickstart for the television industry into launch mode for the upcoming fall season of TV. So that's 2 weeks away from now. But now, due to the strikes via the writers and the actors, Labor Day this time around holds much more significance and becomes a threshold for the writer's strike to end so that network can air worthwhile season lengths when that time comes around. That being at least around 13 episodes. If this doesn't happen by around the start of October, this could delay shows until this time next year and spell the end for shows that were already on the bubble in a third, fourth, or fifth season, or shows that are just entering a second season, like the two shows we mentioned earlier, and those ones are going to be put into sizable danger the longer this goes on. And the irony around this is that, sure, the two shows that were scrapped were streaming shows, but a lot of the shows that are going to be put at risk the longer we go on now are network shows, and the networks and working on a network show are usually the ones that get paid much more, decently. It's the people that work on the streaming shows that are sort of getting, the crap end of the stick, if you want to put it. But here is probably the big important date if all you really care about is yo man, when the hell is my show possibly going to be back on my screen? So as Deadline says here, the timing has been on the minds of TV executives, producers and showrunners as we get closer to the fall. A potential early September end of the writer's strike and subsequent AMPTP agreement with SAG-AFTRA would allow returning drama series to premiere by the middle of February and new ones by March, so they could get standard mid-season runs of 13 episodes within the regular broadcast season. So of course, you usually have your fall premieres, and a lot of the shows that premiere there and maybe go into next year have 20 episodes. We would have had that, on the CW with Flash and Arrow and all them back in the day. But then we have a show like Superman and Lois, which has only had usually around 13 to 15 episodes max, and that's usually been a mid-season show. But this time around, we would get shows that would normally have those much longer episodes come down and meet the length of one of those mid-season shows. Deadline does note that comedy series could start later on, maybe around October, and make those same premiere dates, because they take less time to make and put together. But in regards to a show like Superman and Lois, that was already at a smaller amount of episodes, under 13. It was at 10 episodes for this upcoming season. So that does mean that Superman and Lois does have a bit more wiggle room compared to some other shows that would have maybe, 15 plus episodes, maybe even 20 episodes or something planned, but now have to start shortening their lengths potentially to fit that broadcast season. Now, a veteran writer and producer for TV in Hollywood did say this to Deadline. Today, many network dramas would have begun shooting their 4th episode of the fall season. If the strike was somehow to end by Labor Day and shooting were to begin in early fall, the networks might be able to salvage a 13 episode season. The clock keeps tick-tocking. And when it comes to the writer strike and the WGA's negotiations with the AMPTP or big studios, they are making much more ground compared to the Actors Union, whose situation is much more of an issue for the studios and does question the future of streaming services as a whole when it comes to residuals and stuff like that. And that's, of course, if the actors are able to get what is being put forward. So that's the thing I'm most curious about, is how they sort that out. So there has been regular meetings between the writers and the studios to bargain a deal, but nothing really major has come out of it, just some minor stuff. But the fact there are conversations happening is a good sign of things to come, but it's also just a wait and see. These strikes can end within like 48 hours. There can be like the ball can start rolling and things just happen. But then there can be like a rotten egg in a bundle of good eggs in regards to the negotiations that allow it to keep going for a week, 2 weeks, or a month or something. So they can end incredibly quickly, but they can also just keep on going with nothing really happening. But Deadline did give us a sort of like timeline, I guess you could say, to follow when things start to pick up, whether that is the writer strike actually ending or the strikes as a whole coming to a wrap. For studios to restart TV production, writers need to come back first to get working on scripts, which likely explains why the AMPTP reached out to the WGA first. A SAG-AFTRA agreement would then presumably follow, allowing filming with actors to begin when scripts are ready. According to industry sources, if starting from scratch with no banked scripts, it will take at least 2 months after the strikes end for an established drama series to start delivering new episodes. For a multi-camera comedy, that time is said to be at least 6 weeks. These are the most compressed estimates I've heard. In reality, it could take up to an extra month for finished episodes of comedy and drama series to start coming in. Now, one of the issues around this potentially, even if the Writers Guild does come to an agreement, is the fact that the writers have said they will continue to strike alongside the actors until their deal is done. But there is a difference between words and actions, and that will be something we actually have to wait and see if it does happen. So there is that chance that while the writers, could be dealt with in regards to the studio side of things, they do go and strike with the actors, but then again, they might not actually do it. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens there, but I don't know. I'm curious about that as well. Now, they are saying 2 months there for scripted and established drama series, which Superman and Lois would fall under, with the potential for it to go like a month longer. But here is a big kicker. It's also important to remember that Superman and Lois does use visual effects and all that stuff, which would add more time to the process. So it's a decent estimate to work off, but also you have to consider specific elements of certain shows. Now, one of the worries in regards to these various delays, because it's very similar to the COVID times, was viewership. When a show's gone for a while, will people come around when it eventually returns? And this is sort of revolving around the stuff here that Deadline says. While there is optimism, if the current return to the negotiating table does not progress to get the two sides close to a deal by September and the WGA strike stretches to October, the networks would have to make some difficult decisions, especially on newer scripted series. Faced with the prospect of only being able to air 6 to 8 episodes of a new show in mid-season before the season ends in late May, and factoring in the pricey launch of marketing campaigns, networks could opt to keep some series for fall 2024, which would also potentially help with viewership initially. For veteran series with devoted fan followings, a longer break between seasons is not ideal, but won't affect viewer turnout beyond the overall continuing erosion of linear ratings. Linear viewing share fell under 50% for the first time ever in July. So I think overall it wouldn't be too much of a worry, but there are some cases when there is a popular show or a show that's decently popular, it is away for a while, COVID sort of highlighted it to an extent, and then it comes back, it just doesn't perform as well as it used to just because of the time separated there. But shows always fall off. No show ever really, especially when it gets season 3, 4, goes up in viewership. That never happens. There's always that erosion, as they say there. But one of the more concerning things, which we highlighted before, is the potential of cancellations. Like, sure, losing some viewers, not the best, but as long as you get enough to stay on the air, that's fine. But what about cancellations? Well, Deadline doesn't ignore that. They highlight that and also do use a COVID comparison. It is not a surprise that series renewed for a second season were hit disproportionately harder by pickup reversals and cancellations after the pandemic shut down production for months, creating big gaps between seasons. While there were contributing other factors too, most of the unrenewed series during COVID were headed to season 2, including Netflix's A Society and I'm Not Okay With This, as well as Showtime's On Becoming a God in Central Florida and ABC's Stumptown. There is concern that, also possibly in a confluence of multiple factors, something similar could happen to current series renewed for season 2 in broadcast and beyond, and even to some newly picked up first-year broadcast shows. Now, of course, this is them referring to what happened. This is like a prediction pretty much, or, an unintentional prediction, because we saw that happen to the 2 streaming shows on Amazon. So, and like a couple of shows there they mentioned before that COVID affected were streaming as well, but then there was one network show there as well. So I think it will be interesting to see what happens. I think that deadline they sort of gave in regards to hopefully October the latest is when I think most shows should be safe. You'd have to think, but I think once we cross that, October line, don't be surprised if there's more and more announcements about, especially shows in season 2 getting unrenewed and cancelled. And if there is a show that was picked up maybe from their pilot to go into a season 1, they might just not go along with that, or it's going to be delayed and who knows what's going to happen there. So that happened a lot during COVID as well. So though there's not a pandemic happening where people are stuck indoors, the same thing's happening here where things aren't being filmed. And also, I guess in COVID they would have been writing still at home and stuff, but at least the filming side of stuff wasn't happening. So it's going to be a watch this space thing. I think a lot of people are curious about it. And if there are any shows that you really liked heading into a season 2 that maybe weren't insanely popular, those are the ones you might want to be worried about, even if they are on streaming and not network, because the only ones that have been cancelled so far are on streaming. So, and they're warning more about the network stuff here. So I guess be wary. But Superman and Lois shouldn't be affected by this. Like they sort of highlight before, those shows that have that fan following and stuff like that, which Superman and Lois falls into, you have to get to like extremes where we're still on this issue in February next year or something, which isn't going to happen. At least logically, it's not going to happen. That's just not going to be the case. But in the worst of worst situations, if that's the case, we're still here during February and the strike's still going on, okay, then maybe be worried about shows like Superman and Lois and stuff like that. But at the moment, that doesn't seem realistic. So Superman and Lois should be safe, but any other shows you fancy, maybe keep an eye on them. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. You could drop a like and show support. Let me know your opinions in the comments section down below. Will you be sticking around with a lot of shows, even if there's that delay, or will you want, during the COVID period, just fell off some stuff? I don't know, let me know in the comments section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.